We're going to be doing some plumbing this morning. We're going to be changing all these angle stops under the vanities and in the kitchen. And we'll show you how these come apart. These are held on with this nut, and in front of the nut there's a brass ferrule that tightens around the copper. And sometimes they're a little bit tough to get off, but we have a tool that we use to pull them. And then we'll show you what it looks like once the valve's off. We're going to be replacing these angle stops this morning, and we're going to sweat on some male threaded fittings so we can screw the new valves on. These old valves have the nut on the back with a brass ferrule that pinches over the copper. And then, see if you can see that. Inside there's the brass ring, and that's what tightens around the copper pipe. So we have a tool we're going to use to pull that off. And then sometimes the pipe gets pinched, so we might have to cut a piece of the copper off before we solder on our new fitting. This is the puller that we're going to use to pull the nut and the brass ring off. This pipe's not in bad shape. Sometimes those brass rings really put a dent in this copper, but we'll be able just to clean this up and solder on our new fitting. Alright, we got the fitting off, and we're going to sweat our new fittings on. We cleaned the pipe, and you want to brush the fitting inside as well. We just use these wire brushes, and it goes inside to clean it. And then you want to put some flux on it, so the flux goes on the pipe and in the fitting. Just brush it on, and the idea is that the solder is going to flow wherever the flux is. So a little bit on each, push it on, make sure it goes on all the way, and then take your torch. So you want to heat up the fitting just enough for the solder to flow, but you don't want to overheat it. That's it. Let it cool off, don't touch it. This fitting has a little bit too much play, and that won't work. You can't count on the solder to take up all that space, so I'm going to have to do something different. I'm going to cut the sheetrock open and change a section of that pipe. Alright, so I got the wall open, and that little piece of pipe is the one that's too small. I could either heat up that fitting and replace the piece of pipe, but I think I'm going to cut the pipe and put in a dog ear. So we'll put a 2x4 block a little bit higher. It seemed a little bit too close to the floor anyway. And we'll sweat on a dog ear, and then that will take a galvanized nipple. Be the same result, just a little bit different. Alright, so we can kind of cut this wherever we want. So I have my cutter on there. Those just go over the pipe, and then there's a directional arrow on them. As you start turning, they get tighter, a little tighter and tighter, until they cut through the pipe. And they fit in tight spaces, so that's pretty nice. Okay, so that's off. And we'll take that block out and take the piece with it. Okay, so that's what that looks like when it's all done. Now we just have to patch it up. Got to get those drywall guys over here. Move our hole, obviously, because I cut the pipe shorter. So I just colored the cap with my pencil. We'll put this back where it goes. Give it a couple of taps and then it'll leave you a mark where you got to drill your hole. Now we got the new valves on. And it looks a lot better. I like those better because they have a mechanical thread that holds the valve on versus those little brass bushings. And these are quarter turn valves, which are a lot nicer. The other ones were multi-turn valves. Looking good.